Welcome to The Point of View. This is your first post-lockdown edition. My name is Bernard Avle. The Point of View, we get you the right guests, ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. And tonight's show is big because the President of the Republic has unlocked the 3-week lockdown and tongues are wagging. I have a very exciting panel to delve into the various angles of this issue. It's live and interactive. If you are watching on television, you can send us your views on the WhatsApp number on the screen. If you're watching on any social media platform, there's going to be a very good conversation in the stream. Stay with us. So welcome back. As you can see, I'm well masked up. We're trying to encourage everybody to, as much as possible, wear their mask, especially before they head out of their houses. It's very important to reduce the spread. The WHO has changed their view on masks. Now we're told it's very important in limiting spreads. So I have 3 erudite gentlemen to help us understand what next after the lockdown has been lifted. We have in studio the newly minted Deputy Minister for Health and Member of Parliament for Lejokuku, the Honorable Bernard Okoboy. Great to have you. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
It's good to see you, sir.
Yes. Good to see you too.
Great.
Ben.
Joining us by the power of technology, we have a former Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Professor Agyeman Akosa. Prof, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite good under the circumstances. And let me take the opportunity to congratulate Honorable Okoboy as Deputy Minister. You have a formidable task, but I know you'll do it.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. I also have from some part of the country, a public health physician and a member of the NDC's technical team on COVID-19, Dr. Koma Jehuapia. Doc, good evening.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
And also, let me join to congratulate my good friend, my young friend, Dr. Okoboy. Congratulations. I listened to your interview. It went very well.
Dr. Joe is my friend.
I wondered why they didn't ask you any other question apart from COVID-19. I thought they should have grilled you on all health issues. But congratulations, you did well.
Thanks, Doc.
Maybe you get a chance to do that, Doc. And I like your glasses, by the way. They look really nice. Let's remind ourselves of what the President said. He spoke for 34 minutes. I'm going to play you just a few minutes of the key reasons why he lifted the lockdown after 3 weeks. Here goes.
In view of our ability to undertake aggressive contact tracing of infected persons, the enhancement of our capacity to test, the expansion in the numbers of our treatment and isolation centers, our better understanding of the dynamism of the virus, the ramping up of our domestic capacity to produce our own personal protective equipment, sanitizers and medicine, the modest successes chalked in containing the spread of the virus in Accra and Kumasi, and the severe impact on the poor and vulnerable. I've taken the decision to lift the 3-week-old restriction on movements in the Greater Accra metropolitan area and Kaswa, and the Greater Kumasi metropolitan area and its contiguous districts, with effect from 1 a.m. on Monday, 20th April. In effect, tomorrow, we'll see the partial lockdown in Accra and Kumasi being lifted. I must make it clear at the outset that lifting these restrictions does not mean we're letting our guard down. All other measures are still firmly in place. For the avoidance of doubt, the earlier measures announced on Wednesday, 15th March, which have been extended, are still very much in force and have not been relaxed. I'm demanding even greater adherence to these measures. In here, I'm referring to the suspension of all public gatherings, including conferences, workshops, funerals, parties, nightclubs, drinking spots, beaches, festivals, political rallies, religious activities, and sporting events. all educational facilities, private and public, are to remain closed.
So that was the president. So the headline is that borders remain closed, social gatherings banned, lockdown lifted. Let me start with Professor Kosa. Watching all over the world what other countries have been doing, what were you expecting the president to say in relation to the lockdown when he spoke yesterday, Prof?
Bernard, let me say that it's the president's call to lock down, and it's the president's call to unlock. All of us can only advise, and therefore I know that the groups that I'm associated with advised that the lockdown should remain, and probably advised that the lockdown should be extended. That was an advice to the president. But just as I said, it was he who initiated the lockdown, and he is the only person who can uplift the lockdown. So yes, I expected an extension of the lockdown. I expected probably 2 weeks to the end of April, and I expected that at least all regional capitals should have been locked down as well.
What reasons informed that advice from your side?
Bernard, if you look at the science of this whole distribution of COVID-19, you would immediately appreciate that it has moved from the center, where the center is Accra, and has moved towards the periphery. And in all cases, apart from the cases in Ho, where people came through porous borders, and therefore Aflao became a flashpoint, most of them went from Accra to a regional capital, and then, contact tracing, of course, will take you anywhere the people are. So the whole issue was that there was a progression, and the progression had moved from Accra to Kumasi to Cape Coast to, I think the other exception was the Udumase Krobo 1. Mm-hmm. But if you saw almost all the cases, it was a progression from the center. And we felt that even at the state in which we were, there was still a lot of outstanding backlog in testing. So to date, testing is coming, results are coming out 5, 7, and in some cases even 10 days, which we all felt was not good enough. And therefore, for us, we felt that we needed to get to a situation where more testing centers would have come online. At the moment, they've only extended it to 3. The rest are to come on. When are they coming on? We don't know. But we've been waiting for the last 3 weeks to a month. So we needed all those things to come online. And further public education, because already the lockdown in so many areas, we're not being observed properly, and we needed to make sure that we do not get ourselves into a situation where there will be a rebound and then we will be rushing to take measures. So for a lot of us, for these reasons, we felt that the lockdown was important. But let me say that in the president's maiden statement, he said that the economy can be brought back, but human lives cannot be brought back. And for me, that has been my guiding statement. It was an operative statement that we all felt he should still have, made that his guiding principle. But unfortunately, like I said, he's lifted the ban, and we have got to make do.
So is it fair to say that your reasons were mostly epidemiological?
Bernard, mine can only be public health. But I suppose that the economy, in this instance, overrode the public health concerns.
Fair enough. Let me talk to Dr. Jehu Appiah. What first, personally, were you shocked, or was normal for you to hear him cut the lockdown?
Let's be honest, Bernard, thank you for this opportunity to be on this great platform, and greetings to all your viewers. I was shocked, and I think most Ghanaians, judging from what is going on social media, about 70% of Ghanaians are shocked when the president, when they heard president talk about this. So I think that I was shocked, like most Ghanaians. Maybe Okoboy is also shocked sitting down there. That we thought this lockdown was going to be for the next 2 weeks at least, for us to contain the viruses, and be able to effectively test and maybe do effective contact tracing. But be that is may, as Prof just said, is a president who locked these areas down, and it's on him. He has a mandate to lift the ban. We think it's the consideration and the reasons given for the lifting was not adequate. Because as the popular saying that Prof just quoted, I wouldn't want to repeat it, is that the economy can be brought back. And we have been told by the Minister of Finance that we have enough money to go around to solve the issue. So what is it? If it's for technical advice, I believe the president has put together a very competent technical group, because I know the members of the technical group, they're quite competent. So the consideration was not technical. I believe and I suspect the consideration was something else beyond technical. Let's say it's political or is it economic? And I think I was shocked, like many others were shocked. And first of all, we should also know why the lockdown, actually. There are two main issues why, we take this decision in a public health setting. The goal of the lockdown is actually to limit the spread of the virus by instituting a series of interventions. And I believe that is why it was good at the time that Ghana had the lockdown, to make sure that we have instituted issues. The lockdown is just not a joke. It's for you to do all you need to do to contain the disease and to provide space and time, resources for the aggressive public health response. If these things were going on because of the cases that were mounting up in Greater Accra and Greater Kumasi and Kaswa and Tema and Obuasi, for instance, was good. But we think that we have not reached that limit for us to say that, yes, we have reached a stage where this lockdown could be removed. 3 weeks is not adequate. And the figures that we are getting, as Prof said, sometimes it takes 2 to 3 weeks for us to get results from the testing site because they are inundated with the samples that are coming in. So we believe that we could have done better than this, and I was disappointed. And I believe a lot more Ghanaians were disappointed. And we think that, for the spread of the disease and the containment, we could have done a little bit better than we did, last night.
Fair enough. Let me come to Dr. Okoboy for a reaction to both. So Prof. Akosa is, I won't say surprised because they advised against it, as is Dr. Jehuapia. Yeah. So what is government's thinking beyond what the president has told us?
All right. Thank you, Ben. Greetings to my colleagues, my seniors. So, first of all, I wasn't too surprised. In fact, I remember telling my brothers that we might lift the restriction on the lockdown, but keep schools closed, activities low, and not allow gatherings and all that, and then still recommend strongly the social distancing and all that. And the reason was very simple. I predicted that because the situation, like they say, medicine is global, but its practice is supposed to be local. So, Ben, when you look at our situation, you have 900 and currently, you have 1,042, but that's the global picture. Those are the cases we've had since the viruses first entered this country. As we speak, we have 934 active cases. Active means I've subtracted those who have passed and then those who have recovered. And out of the 934, 930 are mild in nature. That's 99.5%. The global picture, the mild ones constitute about 95 to 96. Ours is 99%. When you come to fatality, it's about 0.86, less than 1. Now, in trying to deal with this virus, there are things you are interested in everything, but forgive me, some people will just add to the statistics. They will get a virus and then later test negative or recover. But you are interested in the very few who might be seriously ill. And you're also interested in getting your positive cases early enough so they don't get severely ill and also spread the virus. The lockdown was supposed to achieve about 4 things. 1, is to limit the spread of the virus. 2, to allow you space as a country to increase your education of your public, their awareness, and augment your preparation. Meaning, if you don't have enough ventilators, quickly beef up your ICU facilities. And most importantly, to trace your contacts. Now, tracing contact, remember this virus is imported. It's not a virus that we'll say is endemic within us. It came from outside. If you get 200 cases from abroad, and all their contacts, the people they've dealt with, the modeling says you have about 100,000. You do a lockdown so you can fish out as much as possible out of the 100,000. So I've put 97% in my notes. So let's say you are able to, within this period, we've traced about 80,000 people. Let's grant that it's 100,000. So it means there is a window which you've not gotten. But this is a special niche. Once you've gotten majority or significant numbers, because this is the niche you expect the cases to be in, more or less you say the society is to some extent purged of the risk. So this morning I used a term, the paradox of numbers, where a lower number says lockdown, and then a higher number rather says that like you can go. And the analogy I used is that of a snakes in a school. So you have snakes in a school compound. 3 snakes are found. And then the management says that we are closing down the school when it was 3. And then they go on a program to identify and map the whole compound and virtually get all snakes as much as possible. In 2 weeks, they get 1,000 snakes live, kill them, and say kids can now go back to school. If you are not careful, you say, how come you close the school when you have 3 snakes identified? And let's go when you have 1,000. You let go because you are convinced you have a bigger picture of the situation and you've taken risks significantly out of the population. So this is one classical example where a higher figure rather comes. And remember, I've listened to international media. New York, the governor, Cuomo, they are saying that, Trump says that as much as possible, let people go back to normal life. What is he saying? He says he wants to increase his tests to get a bigger picture of the real situation of the virus. Meaning, the more tests, the more likely you get positives.
Okay.
And I'm wrapping up. More tests means that you can get more positives. But he is saying that when he gets more cases, he would rather be in the better position to say now you can go back to normal life. Why? Because he would have scanned the population and thinks that he has a fair idea of the risk and all that.
All right.
So
let me take a reaction to the 3 points you've made, and while my people help you with your mask. So Prof, first, Okoboy says 99.5% of our cases are mild. This is
of our active cases.
Active cases. This is much higher than the global average of 95. Number 2, our mortality rate 0.86, below 1, also lower than the global average. Number 3, the paradox of numbers. The more cases you have, the better a picture you have of the situation. So therefore, it's a blessing to have traced almost 80,000 contacts. You have a better picture of the situation. Prof, what's your comment on these reasons?
What I would say is that we are in, should I say, a catch-22 situation. If we even had all the test results even out, my understanding is that there's still an outstanding 12,000 tests that we have not gotten the results. If we had increased testing sites, and therefore it was not getting results after 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, then what the Honorable Minister has said probably, for me, will be reasonable. But you have a situation where you have 12,000 outstanding tests. The results are going to come back tomorrow. And just as we were all shocked when the numbers went to 1,042. And let me say that, surprisingly, you go to the Ghana Health Service website, and you realize that on the 13th of April, that was the number that had been positive. But somehow that number came out only when the president addressed us on Sunday. So, in a sense, I am seeing that the results probably are coming, but somehow results are being managed in a manner that might look suitable. Because somehow on Tuesday the 13th, was it the 13th or Monday or Tuesday, that 1042 came out and somehow immediately it was removed. But interestingly, yesterday, the 19th of April, 1042 came out. But if you go and look at their graph tells me that that was the number we attained on the 13th of April. Now, these are the issues that worry some of us. Why we could not even hold on and make sure that at least we could zone the country and have testing sites. You know, currently, you're moving tests from Upper West to KCCR in Kumasi. Why? You know, we're told that the veterinary center in Tamale was coming upstream. Why is it not upstream? The Tamale Public Health Reference Lab is coming on upstream. Why can't we get it there? Because for me, these are the issues. This is our preparedness to say that, look, now we have set the stage. We are aggressively testing. You know something? We missed an opportunity this morning. All the VIP buses that left Kumasi to Accra, Accra to Kumasi, Accra to almost all the other sites, I believe sincerely that all those who boarded those buses should have been tested. It would have really given us a clear indication where we are in this pandemic. But at least, you see, we've lifted it and gives everybody cold comfort. No wonder yesterday people were jubilating in the streets of Accra. Meanwhile, these are the very people who have not maintained
my journey.
You know, so this is for me the issues. I think that we are ill prepared for the lift up. And we haven't even spoken about our preparedness in the hospital. We haven't even talked about our preparedness in the hospitals. Because again, that also leaves a lot to be desired. We have health workers who are really worried because some don't have PPEs, you know, some don't have PPEs, and they are still one patient come for the good of all health professionals have got to see that.
Okay.
And these are, for me, some of my worries.
We've taken note of your points. We'll react to them. But Dr. Jehu Appiah, one of the things that struck me about the NDC statement was three things. They said the lifting of the restrictions are premature. You've already addressed that. But the second part, and dangerous, and will most likely result in a significant escalation in the number of cases. Can you put some flesh to this? Why are you convinced that beyond premature, this could actually lead to a ballooning of cases, Doc?
Yeah, I think that's it's important to make this note that, you know, what Prof has said already.
So probably with my turn, I tap to speak or something, and then I can activate the videos. Now I cannot.
All right. Doc, just hold on. I'm getting some interference in your Zoom. I don't know whether it's coming from somebody in the conversation or not. So let me try and resolve that whilst I bring Oko in. So I think Prof has made some significant points which I think require some reaction quickly.
So a quick one. So I said the lockdown will allow you time to trace the contacts.
Yes.
Now, that, like I said, is a special niche population. Mm-hmm. I mean, those who have come to contact with the imported cases. Mm-hmm. If you have 100,000, you've captured about 80 to 90%. Mm-hmm. Now, those he talked about maybe joining a bus to Kumasi, that population, their risk is lower than those who have come into contacts who have been traced, contacts with cases, imported cases. So now, even if you should test all of them, you are going to do less than 1.5% because their risk is lower. Remember, those who were mandatorily quarantined had a positivity rate of 10%. They had a greater risk. Those who are their contacts have a rate of 1.5%. Now, the science of it is that if the lower you go, the lower the percentage, then it's not that you want to say forget about it, but bottom line is that the risk is lower. So the alarm or the fear is lower. Now, let me also add quickly that, look, Norway, I did a quick research. Norway is looking at lifting measures from the 20th of April. Public gatherings will still be prevented until June 15th, Norway. Their number of cases is about, there are about 7,000 active cases, 181 deaths. By this, by the 20th of April, when they will lift, their cases will still be, I'm sure, more than 100 times Ghana's number. Now, it tells you something. France is considering a back to normal life, gradual roll-up, May 11th. Schools will be open, kindergarten, but still the numbers, large gatherings like we did, will be closed. Italy is looking at May 4th. Now, why are they all doing this? They are doing this because, strictly speaking, it's not an argument of economy versus people or health. It's an argument of people versus people, and I explain shortly. When we speak about some of these restriction movements and all that, it has a way that it increases the risk for other people. Let's say a woman is having acute labor, must reach the hospital. Because of the lockdown, access, we talk about delays to the hospital, and Prof, they all know. There is a greater chance that you are going to face challenges with delay. Even with you and myself who have exemptions, you see what the police and the soldiers were doing. Sometimes you are in traffic to go through the checks. There is a lot of hazard also that comes with a lockdown. And you must juxtapose the two to be sure that the risk of losing lives in the lockdown doesn't overwhelm.
So you are talking about not just losing lives from hunger, but also possibly people who have medical conditions who, because of lockdown, will not get
Yes, the externalities of a lockdown is not only about, you know, people say it as if it's the economy. No, I say it's about people, real people. Health is one danger. Now, even remember, our borders are closed still. There are vital and essential things that come through from other countries, like drugs, essential medicines. There are drugs that are flown in for surgeries and all that. All this will be affected. And what is interesting is that most of the countries that have an incentive or a motivation to extend their lockdown do so because their fatalities are significant. So if you're a country that has recorded 5,000 deaths from COVID, if even a lockdown can risk 100 lives, as in people, 100 people can die, the balance tells you strictly that you are better off.
You are back to your point of low mortality and then low level of the high level of mild cases.
Absolutely. That is the science in doing a lifting up at this period. And also the paradox of the numbers I spoke about.
Let me try and see if I can get Dr. Jehuapia back. Initially, there was an interference.
Yes, there was an interference. I'm here.
All right. So I wanted you to elaborate on the claim that the lifting was dangerous and would result in an escalation of cases. And then you can react to some of the points he makes.
Let me comment on a research done by University College of London about, they reviewed a study. A lockdown, when a proper lockdown leads to 45% of reduction in transmission. Lockdown, 45% of reduction in transmission. When you close down schools, it will lead to a reduction in transmission by 15%, school, 15%. Restriction in mass gathering reduces transmission by 7%. Physical distancing.
Hello? We seem to be struggling with...
I'm back.
Oh, yes,
I'm back.
Yes, physical distancing, what percentage?
Physical distancing gives you 6%.
Great.
Yeah. So, it tells you that the lockdown, there's some positivity with the lockdown because it gives you 45%, a whooping 45% of reduction. So we shouldn't rush when the program is doing well, the lockdown is doing well. You see, I can't get my video on, but let me use voice, it doesn't matter.
But we can hear you, go on, yes.
Yes, the lockdown is doing well. Why the rush? Because the Ghana Medical Association, in this letter to the president, indicated even a complete lockdown of the country. NDC COVID team also made the same recommendation, and what do you call it? Other groups have made the same suggestion to the president. So I believe that for the president to come out and say this, when we know that lockdown will yield to a lot of cases reduction in transmission, Why rush and not consider that? We say that we have, Dr. Kuba is saying that we have locked down our borders and all that. Yes, fantastic. The borders that we locked down gave us a positive, indication of the cases that we could trace. But mind you, when we started, the imported cases were higher than the local transmission. When we locked down, we had a lot of people who you said they were imported cases, that's what we call them. Currently in Ghana, we have those who have this transmission. You see, they said the host has stopped my video, but it doesn't matter.
No, I can still hear you. Go ahead. Just go ahead.
They said now we have about 80% of the cases are transmitted, locally. Mm-hmm. We have a huge case that we are not addressing. And now that we have opened the borders, what is happening? Not borders.
We've lifted the lockdown. Yes.
We've lifted the lockdown. As Prof said, a lot more people, as they traveled before the lockdown, have also traveled out. We don't have testing centers. The testing centers that we have actively working are the Gucci and the Kumasi Center. Even the number that we are getting, 80,000 from Okoboy, can we say that it's 80,000? Is it 80,000 samples or 80,000, individuals who have presented specimen? It appears to me that 80,000, because if you do the mathematics of the caseload of Neguchi and the caseload of Kumasi and maybe Kolebu Public Health Reference Lab and all that, if you do the mathematics, 80,000 appears to me that is a sample, the number of samples that we have collected. Because as somebody who was positive and later turned negative and negative, it means there are 3 samples you are talking about. So it means that this 80,000 might be exaggerated. 2, I do not also trust the figure that we are getting, like Prof said, because if 1,042, we heard about it last week, why didn't the Minister for Information and the Ghana Health Service and all those who had the press conference tell us this? Why should it wait till Sunday, yesterday, to tell us this? There are a lot of things that are going on that we need to interrogate that. So we believe that transparency is so important. Dr. Kuboy, it's important that we have called on government that let us at least have about 16 centers in all the 16 regions in the country. And if you have the 16 regions in the country testing, because if you have not gotten cases in some parts of the country, that does not mean that they are free. It means that because you have not done testing.
Okay, your video is back. Luckily, what's your comment on the fact that our mortality rate is much lower than the global average, and the percentage of our cases that are mild is also much higher than what is global average? Should that not mean that locally something is happening that is different? Because again, if you quote, for example, the WHO's Ryan, he says there's no real standard for lifting restrictions, and he essentially was saying that every country would have to work out what works for them on the basis of putting all the evidence together. So don't those 2 data points seem to suggest that COVID is not as deadly here as it is probably in Europe?
Unfortunately, the president made the same statement yesterday, and we know that it's also taking lives out. You see, the fact that we have low mortality should not give us say, hooray, we have done well. No. The population pyramid, when you look at the population pyramid of Ghana in Italy, what's the average population of, age of Ghanaians? COVID, we know those who are having mortalities are those who have advanced ages and maybe have underlying conditions. You understand what I'm saying? But in Ghana, for instance, when you look at the population pyramid, the middle batch is those who have ages below 60. So, of course, immunity in such population is good. So maybe we are testing positive, but the mortality is low. Those who are passed on, we got to know later that they have other underlying conditions because of age and other factors coming in. So that shouldn't tell us that because of that Ghana should lift it. That is not an indication.
Okay, let me take
if we had gone on to do more testing, aggressive testing, believe me, we would have found more cases. And currently, we're still saying that we are waiting for 18,000 samples to be tested. What about if these 18,000 come out and they are from another part of this country? What is going to be our reaction? Now, I think that, let's be serious as a country, because this COVID has no political color. this country, this COVID issue, it's a fight, it's a war that all of us have to fight to get out of this.
Let me take Prof on two things. Prof, there's the fact that the president said it's possible to go back to lockdown in specific geographical areas. Provide you any comfort at all? He said that in the statement. Number two, our test per million population appears to be among the highest on the continent. Does that offer you any comfort at all? Those 2 points.
I'll take the latter first. It doesn't. The fact that we are probably next to South Africa, for me, doesn't mean much. Let me just go back. A lot of these things are based on certain assumptions. I like what Koma said, that if you take our population pyramid, we are a younger population. And therefore, if mortality is lower than the world average, it is because of our population dynamics. But let me say that at the moment, if we were out there testing many people in our various communities, then we will see the extent of community spread. As of now, I don't think we know what community spread means. When I said that if both those who were boarding the buses had been tested, at least that would have given us some indication of what the community spread is. And let me say that, see, at the moment, the work that we have done so far has given us certain pointers, but we are not doing unlimited or extensive testing. So we cannot really say that this is the extent of community spread. But let me say that our population or demographic dynamics is also such that if this thing enters into some of our communities that we all know, it will be disastrous, because that is where malnutrition is so florid, and therefore, yes, they may be young, but they're malnourished, and therefore their body's reaction to this COVID virus might be
just a quick
really
question.
Something else.
Must a lockdown be continuous to be effective? Because the president said, and I'm repeating this, that if it's necessary, he would do other localized lockdowns based on the geography of the virus. So if next 2 weeks we hear that there's another enclave somewhere in Kumasi or somewhere, he says he's open to do a lockdown. Will the fact that he's interrupted the lockdown defeat the purpose?
Bernard, for me, once you do aggressive contact tracing, you don't stop there. You do aggressive community surveillance. And that comes with the lockdown. And I hope that that is what we should have done. Because by now, I'm thinking that we have done most of the contact tracing. What is important is really community surveillance, just so that we know the extent to which this virus has penetrated our community. We've missed that opportunity. If you lock again, it is then in response to results that have come up, and you're now going to do contact tracing and so on and so forth. We should have taken this opportunity to tell ourselves that, look, we have 16 regions. Assuming that we do 1,000, community testing within each of the regions, at least we would have had 16,000 samples that will give us an indication of where we are with respect to community infection. And I think that those were the things that I thought would follow. And that is why I said our preparedness for this, lifting, for me, was really not enough.
Thank you. We are still live on The Point of View. My guest in studio, Dr. Bernard Okoboy. He was sworn in less than 3 hours ago. Deputy Minister for Health, Professor Jimabedu Akosa, former Director General, Ghana Health Service, Dr. Koma Jehuapia, public health physician, member of NDC technical team on COVID-19. Take a short break. We'll come back. We'll take Dr. Okoboy's reaction to the points raised, and then we'll take specific suggestions from the two. Now that the lockdown has been lifted, what else can we do to flatten the curve? Do we even know where on the curve we are? We also have your comments. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Point of View. I have 3 guests. They are all medical practitioners. Dr. Bernard Okoboy is the Deputy Minister for Health, MP for Lejo Kuku. Dr. Jehu Apia is a public health physician and a member of the NDC COVID-19 technical team. Professor Jimabedu Akosa, former DG, Ghana Health Service, a public health specialist. Here are a few comments. Kafui from Amasaman. Hello, Bernard, and to your colleague. The situation is disheartening, but we need to look at the focus of 2 groups of persons. The rich for their health and the poor for their survival. The balance will be for the comfortable rich to help the poor to achieve. Each focuses on both sides. Hi, Bernard, this is Philip. Honestly, I don't care how many cases we get. We need recoveries. What's the point in testing without recovering? Hello, Bernard and colleague. If Ghana opens up while the neighboring countries are not, the imported infections from these countries will increase. The brunt of the effects will destroy all of us. This is Abavari. Emmanuel Kwadaso Kumasi. Bernard, those calling for the lockdown are those enjoying things left, right, and center in their homes. The discomfort is not easy coping. Let me come to Okoboy. So some key points have been made about missing the boat on what Professor Akosa is suggesting, mass testing or a national sample or something. What's your comment on that and Jehu Apia's views as well?
Bernard, so far, the contacts that have been traced are living in the community. These are people who have come either directly or indirectly into contact with those imported cases. So going after them within the community during these past 3 weeks is a form of surveillance, which is defined as the collection of data, analysis, interpretation, and using it to make interventions. So there is some form of surveillance going on. Let me state here, no country in the world is doing absolute or mass testing, where you are just called, your samples taken because you are a citizen. Any group they go for usually has some level of risk. Risk meaning that there is something that puts you ahead of others. Your chances of being positive is quite raised. And it is that enhanced testing on groups that have elevated risk that has increased our samples to the 60 or 80,000 that we are talking about. Now, Ben, no country in the world has a curve that is real. When I talk about curve, I talk about number of diseases, cases over time. Your curve can only be close to reality. And the more tests you do, the greater the reality of your curve. So in Africa, to say that Ghana is the second or one of the first per million population tells you that the curve you can rely on most is that of the Ghanaian curve. Why am I saying so? We have what we call the tip of the iceberg principle. Any curve that is reported represents usually the tip of the situation. We assume that you should assume that there are other cases you've not picked. So if the US is now recording about 700,000 cases, it is possible that it is 10 times what is out there, because you report those you have tested. Those that you have not picked, they are not part of your statistics. So if anybody says, when we test more, we'll get more cases, that is the situation everywhere. But I think we also admit that we must increase our testing capacity. We've added, there's a third one, the public reference lab in Kolebu. It's been shown that gene expert machines, which are normally used for TB tests, we'll call it AFB, acid fast bacilli test, can be configured to do the testing for the COVID-19. So we are getting the cartridges, the ministry trying to get some cartridges to make sure that we can do those tests. There are PCR machines that are being procured. Today we were in a meeting with the Atomic Agency. They are receiving a PCR machine on Friday from International Atomic Agency. So as for the capacity, it's being worked on. Remember, no country has a preparation that matches an epidemic or a pandemic. You scale up your level to either meet it or go ahead of it. And I think in as much as we wish that our capacity is boosted, which we are doing, we must also recognize the efforts, because you must judge your country by the quantum of the efforts in the face of the crisis. Nigeria has done less than 10,000 tests. Nigeria has a population that is about 5 times the Ghanaian population. They've done less than 10,000 tests. And this is what is interesting. Look at their GDP. Their capacity should be more than us. But we've shown commitment in the level of testing we are doing. But we admit, like Prof said, you can augment the process. And then, Ben, let me say something. You know what? Your interventions are not meant to wipe away transmission. No country puts in place a lockdown, social distance, so that they record 0 transmissions. You want to reduce the number of transmissions to the barest minimum. And remember, once someone gets a virus, or a virus comes to your country, there is a level of transmission that is almost unavoidable. So if you get 200 imported cases, and within 5 weeks, you are reporting cases of 1,002. Come on, if you understand how viruses are transmitted, you know that your situation is a very unusual one in quote. It means it's extremely low. 5 weeks of having 200 imported cases. We should look at what it could have been in the absence of our measures. And that is why I don't say that we should go to sleep. But we have a situation that is encouraging. Look, in conclusion, Ben, if you go for a population, let's say you come to Teshinungwa, pick 1,000 people to test them. From the science, I can tell you straight away, if you pick 1,000, what you get will be less than 1%, maybe 0.5 or 0%. Why? Because their risk cannot be higher than the contacts who came into dealings with the positive cases we had.
There are a couple of questions about the test. Some people, Prof. Doc asked whether we are not doing double counting. If one person is tested 3 times, is that not counted as more than one?
I agree, but it's not significant.
Because don't forget that for people to be released,
they have to be.
So if you test me twice, and I'm positive, and I am getting ready to leave, you have to test me twice. So that's 3.
Yeah.
So if you have 99 people who have recovered, we can assume that those people have been tested at least 3 times.
I agree.
So if you multiply 99 by 3, that tells you that you have to subtract that from your total test.
But when you subtract, what you have is still a very significant number.
But that will give you a more real picture. But when you use the test per population and you say you've done 70,000 tests or whatever number,
the reason
you essentially giving yourself a false.
No, the reason why it is important is that there is some time that goes into the testing process. If you've tested 50,000, even if some had to be tested 2-3 times, you needed it for your statistics. Remember, without that number of tests, you couldn't have recorded.
No, but if you then calculate your number of positives against that test, and then you say you are a population of 30 million, you've done 60,000 tests, that's a false picture because it's not the population 60,000 tests.
I get you. So there are 2 ways to look at it. You look at it in terms of the number of tests you've done to show that you are investing resources into the testing regime. But in terms of the coverage, I admit it if you want to take it out so that you have a fair reflection. That one is okay.
Let me try and come back to the Prof and Doc to see if there's anything else we can do to salvage the situation. Prof, so it's a decision the president made based on his understanding of the information he was given. That particular horse has bolted because I can't see him announcing tomorrow morning that he's doing a lockdown again, at least in a week or 2. In the circumstance, I've called you as an expert to say, this is my constraint. I've done a 3-week lockdown and I've overturned it. I still have restrictions on public gatherings. I've closed my borders. What's the best thing I can do to minimize new infections and flatten my curve in the circumstance?
Well, I think for me, what would be reassuring is doing a certain snapshot community testing. That will give me greater comfort. You see, the assumptions we are making presupposes that if you say that contact tracers are at greater risk, that just may be true. But what about those who have escaped that contact tracing net and already in the community and are probably spreading in the community? So those assumptions should also be taken into consideration. You could get snapshots within the community and maybe, just maybe, we might get results that might surprise us. So for me, those things are very important to give us that assurance. But I think for me, what is important is that it is not that, yes, we're boosting everything. We established public health reference laboratories many years ago. If today, these public health reference laboratories cannot do PCR tests, then something has happened over all these years. Look, I left Ghana Health Service in 2007. That is 13 years ago. And to tell me that all those public health reference laboratories cannot do PCR really is shocking. And therefore, for me, it is not, our preparedness should have been, look, by now, at least the announcement was made that we were extending it about 4 weeks ago. How long should it take to get these things up and running today as we speak? And why the hurry? If we had said, look, lockdown to the end of April, we would have gotten all these things, and then I would have loved the president stand and say, I have prepared the country well enough. And therefore, as far as I'm concerned, I can lift it.
Okay.
And this is based on public health evidence. Having said that, let's get the community snapshot so that we know precisely what is happening in the various communities. Let's get these things. We should set a deadline and say that by this time we should have, if not every region, at least zonal, so that we don't have to transport tests from Upper West to Kumasi. I think it is not good enough.
Dr. Jewapia, the NDC has been saying that this is all in the national interest, and I've been reading your epistles to the government. How do you salvage this situation where we've gotten to? Is it salvageable?
Where we've gotten ourselves into, yes. I mean, we have to do something. We cannot say, it is done, so what do we do? Let's find a solution. Even the myths and misconception of COVID is still very rife in our communities. You know that. People even think that the COVID virus does not exist. Education, and this is the 6th point of the WHO's recommendation. Community education hasn't gone on well in Ghana. We missed an opportunity when those Kayaye ladies used their own money, transporting themselves to wherever they came from. They were stopped in the Juice and brought back. And of course, that MC is still at post. And when they were brought back, I believe what you should have done was that you could have tested these girls and those who were negative, could have been given education and sent back in a state transport or any appropriate transport to their communities. You know what these girls would have done in their communities? They would have given, education to their peers. We call it peer education. They could have been the ambassadors of COVID in their regions. You see, the education hasn't gone there because we think that when you are on television or on FM station, people in the community in my village in Mozano will get to hear no way. So I think that we'll miss this opportunity, and a lot more of these girls will want to go. The intervention of bringing them cooked food, I think, maybe it was well intended but poorly implemented. You bring cooked food for such people, for how long were you going to sustain that? Why these ladies want to go back? And go back, they would have been empowered and reduce the number in Accra and Kumasi, so that the food that we are supplying would have reached many more.
So you're saying education.
Yes, Prof has talked about testing. That's why I'm not going on testing again.
So education.
But testing, but education in the community for them to understand. Social distancing that we have talked about. Washing of hands. These guys could have given this basic information. Okay. And I believe that we've missed the opportunity, but we can still go on it and try to improve the education.
So let me wrap up with Okoboy. Prof says do more testing in communities. Doc says do more education. Yeah. I saw you taking notes. Yes, you're going to tell your minister this. Yeah. What's your final assurance to Ghanaians? Because if most of them were shocked by this decision, of course, these are the social media people. Ben, we haven't done a poll outside.
Yes. Ben,
what's the way forward?
A country like Switzerland had their first case just around the time we had our first case. Today, they are doing about 26,000 cases. When you compare our situation to most countries, our situation is encouraging. It doesn't mean we have to be complacent. We must increase the testing capacity like Prof talked about, which we are trying to do. It's true, like he said, our health system has had some deficiencies over the years. COVID has exposed those deficiencies. And we must be honest with ourselves that those deficiencies or gaps cannot be closed within months or weeks of COVID. We'll continue to do more investments. Let me also add that there are very important interventions like closure of our borders, which would play a key role in containing the situation. Remember, this COVID-19 is not endemic. It's not in our population. It came from outside. Once you've closed the outside sources, you are likely to have a better grasp. Germany is going to start lifting their lockdown in a few weeks. Same with Israel, same with France. By the time they do so, their cases will still be significant. What it means that they are going to do more of social distancing, which we also have to do. They are going to avoid large groups, which we have to do. And this will continue until we see the prevalence of the virus.
Yes. Thank you very much. We know we should have had more time for this, but guys, I think we've learned a lot. We've been speaking to Dr. Bernard Okoboy, MP for Ledjo Kuku, Deputy Minister for Health. He was sworn in a few hours ago. Congratulations, and we wish you well. Professor Mambedu Akosa, former Director General Ghana Health Service. I can call him a public health expert, and nobody can challenge me. Prof, great to have you. I like Bob Marley behind you. You will live long. Bob Marley is solid. And Dr. Jewapia, My old friend, public health physician and member of NDC technical team. Your background is bare. Put Lucky Dubé there next time. It will inspire us for more the future.
Or Shatawale.
Thank you.
Or Shatawale.
Thank you.
Have a good day, guys. Thank you. My name is Bernard Avle. Stay with City TV. We'll bring you the best on COVID-19. And wear your mask before you go out. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hi, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video on City TV's YouTube channel. Subscribe for more videos on The Point of View. My name is Bernard Avle. Thank you.
The Point of View with Bernard Avle. Monday and Wednesday nights, only on City TV.